Good morning, everybody. We will get started in a couple minutes with the Breath of Mountain Air webinar. In the meantime, if you'd be willing to put your name in the chat, the organization or the government that you're with, it's just a way to, as a way to introduce yourself, help us know who's here, and maybe start some conversations among the attendees. And we'll just get started in 1 minute. We've got a good number of attendees here, so I think we may as well get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the Clean Air Campaign's Breath of Mountain Air webinar series focused on steps local governments can take to strengthen their budgets while improving outdoor air quality. My name is Paul Moon. I'm a planner with Land of Sky Regional Council and a member of the Clean Air Campaign. The Clean Air Campaign is focused on educating the public about air pollution and the actions everyone can take to improve air quality in the Asheville region, around North Carolina, and across the Southeast. Our members include representatives from local, regional, and state government agencies and from organizations and nonprofits engaged in energy issues. A handful of our members will be presenting today. Thank you, Clean Air Campaign members, for all your work on clean air issues and on this webinar series. Before getting started, I just want to share some housekeeping notes. First, everyone is welcome to share their insights and experiences on the topics discussed today in the chat. It'd be great to see resources, links, and comments there posted by attendees that relate to topics on the discussion this morning. You're also welcome to put questions for presenters in the Q&A box. We've reserved time following each section of today's agenda for your questions. If we're not able to get to some questions in today's program, we'll work to follow up to be sure attendees get the resources and answers they want from this webinar. Moving right along with today's program, it is my pleasure now to introduce Brownie Newman. He is the chair of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. The clean air issue is one that Chairman Newman has focused on throughout his career. Previously, he served as the executive director of the Western North Carolina Alliance, where he worked with state legislators to develop and pass the North Carolina Clean Smokestacks Act. Chairman Newman, thank you very much for your support of the Clean Air Campaign and for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning. My name is Brownie Newman, and I serve as chair of the Buncombe County Commission. I'd like to welcome you all to the second day of the Breath of Mountain Air Forum. Thank you for taking time today to learn more about opportunities to improve the energy and environmental performance of our buildings and transportation systems. All of us recognize the unique good fortune we have to live in North Carolina. And we recognize that one of our most important responsibilities is to ensure we pass on to future generations an environment that is as healthy, stable, and prosperous as the one that we have benefited from. Increasingly, we see how the threat of climate disruptions pose a real and growing threat to the well-being of our state, from the mountains to the coast, and to our country. The scope and severity of droughts and wildfires we are seeing is not normal. And the damage being caused by severe storms is changing as well, and not for the better. The reliability of our electric grid is also at risk in new ways. These threats pose a danger to not only our natural ecosystems, but also to the safety of our families and communities as well. The good news is that we have entered a time when we now have powerful and cost-effective tools to help transition our economy to a cleaner energy future. Prior to serving on the county commission, I worked for a local company that developed the first solar farm built in Western North Carolina, which was located on a retired landfill outside the small town of Canton, North Carolina. That project, which was built in 2009, cost about $8 a watt to construct and required significant public incentives to be financially viable. Solar energy projects being installed in North Carolina today, on average, cost about 80% less than that project built back in 2009, and in a great many cases produce energy on a lower cost basis than purchasing electricity on a retail basis from the utilities. Local governments already invest significant public funding to operate our community facilities. Between our own government buildings, our public schools, and community college facilities, for example, Buncombe County taxpayers spend more than $6 million per year just to pay the electric utility expenses for these public buildings. Recent rate increases from Duke Energy have increased those costs and will continue to do so in the years to come. In order to manage those costs and meet our clean energy goals, Buncombe County recently partnered with our schools and AB Tech Community College to study the feasibility of installing solar energy systems on many of our community facilities. We solicited a request for proposals to install solar on more than 40 of our schools, libraries, public safety buildings, and other facilities. We received strong proposals from many companies, including local companies here in Western North Carolina. Our financial analysis of the proposals clearly showed that installing solar energy systems on these public facilities significantly lowered the cost to provide energy compared to purchasing the power on a retail basis from our utility. As a result, our commission, which included all 3 Republican members of the commission, voted unanimously to move forward with installing solar on more than 40 public buildings. The company that won this contract was a respected local company, MB Haynes. The project will reduce the operating cost to county taxpayers by millions of dollars over the lifetime of the project. Local governments also spend heavily to operate our transportation fleets. The cost for fuel to operate our police and sheriff department vehicles, public transportation, and other vehicles is considerable. Just as we have seen with the rapidly declining costs of renewable energy, we are also entering a time when the cost for electric vehicles is comparable to or lower cost compared to conventional vehicles when maintenance and fuel costs are included in the analysis, as they should be, while significantly reducing air pollution. If you operate a business or have a role in the public sector, I encourage everyone attending the event today to begin the process of analyzing the feasibility for installing renewable energy systems for your facilities and to consider clean vehicle options when you are procuring new vehicles. This can be done at the time new buildings are being planned, as well as for retrofits of existing facilities. This represents one of the most straightforward opportunities to transition to cleaner sources of energy and to better manage future operating costs. There are many great businesses that will be interested in providing you with specific proposals for how this can work. In many cases, renewable will be cost competitive on a life cycle basis, and so many of the questions may be centered around what is the best way to finance the projects. Just as we use debt financing to pay for many of our important capital projects, I believe it often makes sense to consider debt financing for these types of projects as well, to make the investments affordable and more scalable. There will increasingly be attractive options to also integrate battery storage into these projects, which can enhance the reliability of our energy supply during storms and power outages. Thank you again for taking time to attend the forum today. Transitioning our public and community facilities and vehicles to clean technologies represents a great opportunity to create a safer and cleaner environment for our kids' futures, and can also play an important role in educating the public about these opportunities as well. Take care and have a good day.
Thank you, Brownie. With that, I'd like to get the presentation rolling with a presentation from Brendan Davey. He is the Regional Supervisor for the Department of Environmental Quality's Division of Air Quality's Asheville office. And Ashley Featherstone is the Director of the Asheville Buncombe Air Quality Air Agency, and both are key members of the Clean Air Campaign. Thank you, Ashley and Brendan, for your presentation today.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Chairman Newman, and good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Brendan Davey, the Regional Supervisor for the North Carolina Division of Air Quality in the Asheville Field Office, which is one of 7 field offices for the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. I'll be speaking today with Ashley Featherstone, the Director of the Asheville Buncombe Air Quality Agency, about sources of air pollution, but also how air pollution relates to the energy efficiency discussion we'll be having later today. And we'll have a few other items of air quality interest for Western North Carolina. Oops. So our Asheville field office, we handle 18 counties surrounding Buncombe, with the exclusion of Buncombe County, which is handled by the local air program. We're a state regulatory agency implementing state and federal air quality regulations. We have an ambient monitoring program with 8 ozone monitors, 2 fine particulate monitors, and 2 sulfur dioxide monitors. We have a permitting program permitting over 200 industrial facilities in the 18 county area. And we do compliance inspections of these industrial facilities. We also handle air quality complaints from the public. In 2021, we handled 259 air quality complaints. About 75% of those were regarding open burning, illegal open burning, and some legal. So with that, that's our Asheville field office with DEQ. I'm going to pass it on to Ashley to introduce herself and her local air program. Ashley.
Thanks, Brendan. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to the Clean Air Campaign and Chairman Newman for supporting us here today. I'm the director of the recently renamed Asheville Buncombe Air Quality Agency. We were the Western North Carolina Regional Air Quality Agency, but we are the local regulatory program here in Buncombe County, as Brendan said. And we do pretty much the same activities that the state does here in our area, like Brendan highlighted. We do operate the air pollution monitors, that network, and we also do permitting and inspections, respond to complaints, and work with our local partners on clean air projects. So here's just a little bit briefly about the history of this agency. Our local program is an outgrowth of a smoke abatement program that the city of Asheville actually started back in 1947. And before we had the EPA in 1970 and our state environmental agencies that formed in the late 60s, air pollution was largely regulated by the bigger metropolitan areas where there was a lot of uncontrolled coal burning and a lot of smoke. So Asheville had a program then, and also Mecklenburg and Forsyth County, they have programs still to this day as well. So EPA allows local governments to have their own air pollution regulatory programs as long as they are at least as stringent as the state that they operate within. So here in the 8-state region of Region 4, we've got 17 local programs that are serving their local agencies. So just a little bit of history here. You know, because of our terrain and because we were the most populated area here in Western North Carolina, we did have air pollution programs that were identified early on. And in 1963, we were part of a study by the U.S. Public Health Service that did monitoring here in the area. And they found back then, as we find today, that some of the worst air pollution conditions that we have are when we have inversions that are associated with the mountains and the meteorological conditions. And most of that pollution is generated locally when we have those really, you know, the worst air quality days. So from 1967 to 70, we were a 4-county program, and Buncombe and Haywood participated from 1970 through 2000. And we were reformed in 2000 as an interlocal agreement with the city of Asheville and Buncombe County. So we have a board with appointees from the city of Asheville and Buncombe County that governs our agency. So what Brendan and I are going to cover today are mainly the sources of air pollution and the regulations, how those are addressed here. And also we have some data to show you about our ambient air quality monitoring trends. mainly our ground level ozone and our fine particles, which are the biggest concern here in the Southeast. And then we're also going to cover a few things that we can all do as individuals to try to do our part and reduce air pollution. And I'll turn it over to Brenda now to start going into those details about the stationary sources.
Okay, yeah, we're going to cover the 4 groups. This is kind of Air Quality 101, the 4 groups of sources of air pollution. First being stationary sources, second, mobile sources, third, area sources, and the 4th being natural sources of air pollution. So I'm going to dig in real quick to one of the biggest categories, the stationary sources. And one of the obvious portions of stationary sources is our power plants, also called electric utilities, whether they burn coal, natural gas, oil, or wood. Locally, we have 2 power plants, utilities, the Duke facility in Skyland, just south of Asheville, and then Duke Cliffside, which is down in Rutherford County, both supplying power to the region. Below that, we have industrial facilities, whether they be large and small, as stationary sources of air pollution. So traditionally for Western North Carolina, we've had a lot of textile industry, wood products. Within that, furniture, lumber mills, paper mills, the paper mill in Canton. We have a lot of mining and spruce pine. And then most all counties have asphalt plants or concrete batch plants or rock quarries. So a lot of different types of industrial facilities as sources of air pollution. Another category is industrial boilers. A lot of these facilities have boilers for heat or for process steam to provide heat to a process or turn a turbine, shaft, whatnot. Pipeline compressor stations are also part of the stationary sources category. All the natural gas that's coming into our region has to be moved, and these compressor stations burn that natural gas to compress and move that natural gas. There's a large gas pipeline from Louisiana all the way to New York City, running through the Charlotte area and Winston area, and branches coming off to our region. So to move that gas, they burn the gas, which creates air pollution to move it. Stationary engines, another portion of stationary sources, whether they're used for peak shaving electrical generation, which town of Waynesville does, town of Forest City, or whether you're running a wood chipper or a car shredder, they're stationary engines as well. So real quick on these pictures here, on the left, we have the Skyland Duke plant, kind of a dated picture. The plant was burning coal in the past, and this was their lovely scrubber that was put on in 2006. The steam was showing that the scrubber was operating, but now that has transitioned to natural gas combustion turbines. So that stack is gone and those coal units are gone, and coal is no longer being burnt at our local plant in Asheville. Bottom right, we have the Canton paper mill, also a dated picture. All the way to the right in that picture, you see the classic stack that was in Canton for 100 years, and that stack has been removed a few years ago, if anybody noticed. And the Canton mill has retired coal units as well and moved on to natural gas combustion to drive a lot of their processes. And the remaining coal units at Canton, you might see some new steam plumes there. They've put on scrubbers. So there's been some dramatic emissions reductions in our region at both these facilities. So what are the regulations there for stationary sources? For each of these groups, we're going to talk about what they are and some of the regulations. So air quality regulations kind of come in fits and spurts over the years, from the Clean Air Act of 1970 to the Clean Air Act of 1977 to the one of 1990, which modernized air quality control. So most stationary sources have some sort of air quality regulation requiring the minimization of air pollution, but one big highlight is the 2002 North Carolina Clean Smokestacks Act, which was spearheaded by Martin Nesbitt and Steve Metcalf, our local legislatures, among many others. And this act affected quite a bit of pollution reduction from our utilities in North Carolina for sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. And having done that, at that point, we were leading the Southeast on these emission reductions. And through federal regulations and lawsuits and reductions at TVA, the rest of the Southeast eventually came to the fold as well as far as emissions reductions. So we've had quite dramatic Southeastern emissions reductions from the utilities. And also worthy of mention is market forces over time. The price of natural gas has plummeted in the past 15 years. Fortunately, at the same time, as far as burning natural gas is less polluting than coal, and a lot of industries have transitioned to natural gas combustion. And looking to the future, House Bill 951 signed in October by Governor Cooper, a bipartisan effort to make our electrical generation sector carbon neutral by 2050. So a lot has gone on, a lot more to come on the stationary source side. So now we're going to move back to Ashley for mobile sources.
Thanks, Brendan. So here with mobile sources, we categorize those also, and they're broken down into on-road and non-road. So on-road is pretty obvious, things like cars and trucks, buses, and non-road mobile sources are things like trains, planes, construction vehicles, lawnmowers, boats, farm equipment, even things like weed eaters and things of that nature. Next slide. And as far as mobile sources go, these are mostly regulated at the federal level. So EPA issues standards to address things like the on-road cars and trucks and the non-road equipment. Those are go into effect nationwide so that the whole nation has the same standards. You can see this really got going in 1975 with the first tailpipe standards. And then we had additional standards that came into play from 77 through 1981. And then these tier standards came into effect in 1994 through 2017. A lot of those also address the non-road equipment. So we're mainly looking at the pollutants off on the right side of the chart here, NOx, which contributes to ground level ozone, carbon monoxide, VOCs, greenhouse gases, hazardous air pollutants, and particulate matter. There's also state regulations like here in North Carolina, where we have our vehicle inspection and maintenance requirements. You're probably familiar with that when you have your car inspected and there's an onboard diagnostic system. Those are shown to reduce emissions, those programs. We've been seeing those get phased out over the years as the air has gotten cleaner, but we do still have them in effect here in Buncombe County and some other counties here in North Carolina. Also, the USDOT has what they call the CAFE standards, which address average fuel economy. Those are getting tightened over the years and cars are getting more and more efficient. We have regulations that address the type of fuel we burn, like the fuel sulfur standards. Sulfur content has been required to be reduced in the diesel fuel and also in gasoline. And gasoline, that helps with the catalytic converters. They can work better with less sulfur in the gas. And onboard vapor recovery systems also address evaporative emissions. So over the years, we've seen cars and trucks get a lot cleaner, and that's made a lot of good contributions.
So the third category or grouping of air pollution sources we call area sources. This is kind of a collection of smaller sources, whether they be urban or rural, but higher in number, that when added together, their cumulative effect can have an effect on air quality. And so this includes your gasoline stations, all the gasoline vapors coming off that gasoline station, your wood stoves, agricultural operations for dust or ammonia emissions from livestock or fertilizer application, your consumer products, your paints, personal care products, and other, your local dry cleaners using perchloroethylene to dry clean clothing, auto body shops using paints to refinish cars, and then heating, residential, commercial, institutional, whether these are boilers or space heaters or furnaces. And then open burning. There is legal and illegal open burning. All of these contribute to what's called the area sources, another component to the air quality equation in an area. So even this category has had quite a bit of regulations over the years. So your gasoline station is required to have stage 1 vapor control. When the gasoline tanker drops the gasoline into the underground tank at your station, those vapors are required to go back into the tanker truck to be taken back to the terminal where they're flared. Otherwise, a big plume of gasoline vapors would suddenly fill the neighborhood. Your wood stoves are regulated upon construction. New wood stoves have particulate matter emission limits and EPA certifications, and wood hydronic heaters as well. Your consumer products that you use at home, your paints, your hairsprays and cleaners, insecticides have federal limits on the amount of VOCs that can be in those products. Your local dry cleaner has work practice standards and requirements for closed loop systems. Your local auto body shop has VOC limits on the paints that they're using and work practice standards. There's work practice standards for asbestos removal and permitting requirements. And then open burning as well. You have to have a setback requirement if you're doing land clearing burning. You can never burn synthetic material. That's illegal. There's no burning at your home leaves, yard trimmings when there is public pickup for your yard waste. So that's generally the area sources. One final one of interest is the EPA even went as far to regulate gas cans. So if you buy a new gas can for your lawnmower, it's a different design than years ago, and it's designed to minimize the vapors leaving that can. So far-reaching regulations for area sources.
So I'm going to talk briefly about just the natural sources of air pollution, and those include wildfires. As you all know, we had wildfires here in 2016, and we had some 4 code red days. That's very unusual for us. And of course, out west, they are impacted by wildfires, and we've even been impacted by the smoke blowing to the east from the west in some of these events as well. So wildfires have a significant amount of fine particulates, and those are some of the pollutants that we monitor for that are of the most concern for public health. Volcanoes actually emit air pollution, in addition to probably particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, and hydrogen sulfides. Dust, of course, is a natural source. We've actually had dust from the Saharan desert show up on our monitors here in the US and in Western North Carolina when they have dust storms. Radon is a radioactive gas that is emitted by the rock and the soil decay products there. And that's something that is a bigger concern for indoor air quality. We talk about that a lot, especially now during Radon Awareness Month in January. Recommend people test their houses for that. And biogenic VOCs, things like terpenes and pinene. There are VOCs that are emitted by the trees, and I'm sure you've heard of the haze or the blue from the Blue Ridge Mountains is actually related to that. So we're going to shift gears here and just go over some of our monitoring data. We've got some data for our ground level ozone and our fine particulate matter that we can show you over the years. And ozone, if you're not familiar with the term good up high, bad nearby, that's how we explain that. Ozone is good up in the stratosphere where it protects us from the harmful rays of the sun, but down in the troposphere where we all live and breathe, ground level ozone is a very reactive lung irritant. So you can see on the screen here, this is our data from several of the monitors here in Western North Carolina, including here in Buncombe County at Bent Creek. And our ozone standard, it has been changed over the years. That's the line showing there from 1997, 2008, and 2015. What happens is the EPA continues to do studies and review these standards as they are required. And they typically find, or they have over the years found, that we are seeing health effects at lower and lower levels. And so the standard gets tightened over the years as more and more data comes in, and we find that the air needs to be cleaner. So as you can see, back around the year 2000, we were over the standard in some of our counties, and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park was actually designated non-attainment, not meeting that standard. But now air quality has improved as a result of all the regulations on the stationary sources and the mobile sources and other voluntary efforts, to where you can see that we are all well below and meeting the current standard, the 2015 standard. But again, this standard is actually under review by the current administration, and it could be adjusted downward. And so we have a pretty good margin of error right now, or we're pretty well below the standard, but that sure could change. So there's always more work to be done.
So moving on from ozone to fine particulate, we see a similar trend. Show the reduction of measured ambient fine particulate over the past 20 years at the 5, now 3 particulate monitors in Western North Carolina. And these design values are simply a 3-year average of the annual averages of fine particulate. A little mistake on the units on the left. It's not milligrams per meters cubed, it's micrograms per meters cubed. Sorry about that. But we do show a substantial reduction beginning around 2006 to 2008 of measured fine particulate values. And that's probably a direct correlation to the Clean Smokestacks Act and the scrubbers going on the utilities in North Carolina, other federal regulations and TVA reductions, Tennessee Valley Authority reductions, and all our neighboring states. Scrubbers were being put on and catalytic units were being put on for NOx reductions. reducing a lot of emissions of sulfur dioxide, NOx in the Southeast. And this fine particulate levels followed suit. If you notice from the 1997 standard, 2012 standard, we were reducing before we were getting in trouble with the standards. And again, these standards are under review as well. But back in prior to 2009, if you took the current standard and applied it, the air wasn't quite as healthy as now. So the number of unhealthy days, whether it be ozone or fine particulate in the actual statistical area, have decreased dramatically, as we've been showing on the other slides. We had unhealthy air days in the early 2000s frequently. And in the past 5 years, we've had none measured. In 2016, you can see the little blip from the wildfires, which we all remember going through that. And on a statewide level, for the past 6 years, all of North Carolina has attained all federal health-based air quality standards. So nothing in North Carolina, no area has been in non-attainment. We've been in attainment with all standards for the past 6 years, which is an amazing accomplishment considering the prior 20 to 30 years, we've been had portions somewhere, Mecklenburg County or elsewhere, had been in non-attainment. And so this is a lot of the measurable pollution reductions, but we've had amazing visibility improvements as a result of this fine particulate being reduced. Visibility has improved 5-fold since the late 90s as a result of all these emissions reductions we talked about from mobile sources, area sources, stationary sources. On the worst 20% haziest days of a year, visibility has improved from 9 miles to over 40 miles, 40 to 50 miles. I don't know if everybody who's been here recalls in the late 90s, early 2000s, the right side of this picture is what you would see for quite a bit of the summer, and you wouldn't be able to see Mount Pisgah. And those days are more of a rarity now than commonplace. So some amazing improvements and reductions. And again, these standards are actually still being reviewed, so things may in fact get tighter.
So there are several things that we can all do on an individual level to help reduce air pollution. And, the biggest thing is conserving electricity and driving less or driving smart. Anytime you can burn less fuel in your vehicle by using some of these tips, like maintaining the vehicle properly, tire pressure, keeping that inflated properly, not idling, or anytime you can use less energy at your home, that's less fuel that the power plant has to burn to create that energy. So all of those types of activities will reduce air pollution like our NOx and CO and also greenhouse gases at the same time. So supporting renewable energy and alternative cleaner fuels, electric vehicles, driving right again. There are also alternatives to gas-powered lawn equipment. You can use electric tools now. Report illegal trash burning. Like Brendan said earlier, it's legal to burn brush and naturally occurring vegetation at your home, but it's not legal to burn any kind of trash. And unfortunately, we still find people burning trash. So that's something that we can go out and investigate that's addressed in the air pollution rules. And just getting involved with air awareness programs, educating yourself, knowing the air quality code, and educating others. We can all support all of these efforts. So this is something I'd like to highlight real quick. Our local agency has a Clean Air Excellence Award that we give out every year. We do outreach with our permitted facilities and also in the community. So Eaton Corporation, this is the second year that they have put in for some projects that they've been recognized for. They replaced some equipment, some lasers with a newer, more modern optic fiber laser that actually has a lot less energy usage, that reduces their greenhouse gases by 87%. So I'd like to give a shout out to Eaton Corporation. They're participating in different programs. They worked with Land of Skies Waste Reduction Partners, which is available to come out to your facility or business to help you look at ways you can reduce energy. And also the state DEQ has an environmental stewardship initiative that they're participating in that they've got a lot of support from. So that's what we had to present. Our contact information is here. If you have any questions, we're glad to try to answer those.
Thank you, Ashley and Brendan. We did get a few questions in the chat. The first one is when the newspaper here in Asheville, they sometimes print the air quality index. How does that relate to the readings that you shared in your presentation?
So our monitors that we operate are used to produce that air quality index. And so there are meteorologists, and maybe Brendan might want to jump in here, at DEQ has meteorologists in Raleigh that take all of that data and they look at the weather data and they come up with a forecast for the next day.
Yeah, and they translate the index to a 0 to 100 scale. They're taking the ambient levels and the required levels are certain units and numbers, but they try to simplify it and put it on a 0 to 100 scale. And I guess once you're over 100, it becomes code orange, code red, whatnot. But it's kind of, and yeah, the folks in Raleigh kind of do the predictions and issue the forecasts for the index for that day, whether it be for PM or for ozone. We have 3 meteorologists in Raleigh that look at incoming air masses, measured concentrations, past history, and do predictions on what they expect the index to be.
I appreciate that this question may be a little bit more complicated to answer. This from, how does clean air reduce public and private healthcare costs and improve the quality of life for individuals? Is that something that you can touch on a little bit?
Well, yeah, there's health effects to these pollutants at lower levels for sensitive populations, triggering asthma attacks, things like that. So the cleaner the air is, the less visits to the doctors would be. You know, this fine particulate can actually go, it's so small, it goes through your lungs into your bloodstream, can inflame your arteries and actually cause a heart attack. So the EPA has, when they come out with their standards, they do crunch the numbers on the cost savings on public health. And these 2 pollutants, and all the pollutants have different effects on bodies. But yeah, any reduction would reduce, I would suspect, I'm not an expert in that area, but reduce health costs on individuals, improve quality of life.
There is a lot of,
go ahead.
I was just going to add, there's a lot of data whenever EPA, if you go on the EPA's website and look up the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, they have a lot of this health effect data and that they do to support the standards. So there's more information there.
I think it's important to note that oftentimes underserved communities are often disproportionately impacted by negative air quality. There's lots of studies on that. It's something that we at Land of Sky have been looking at. So I just wanted to share that insight. Maybe a follow-up on the air quality forecast. Are those based on sensors that your graphs represented on PM? Is that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they'll use the monitors to help predict the next day, and they actually might change the forecast for a day during the day based on where the monitors are going. So it's kind of all the above, kind of factoring into the forecasting. But again, not an expert, but the folks in Raleigh, it's kind of in their show.
And the EPA has a website called Air Now. If you go on the Air Now website, you can see the current measured air quality in our area from our monitors. And you can also see the forecast for the next day. You can sign up to get a tweet or an email or any other kind of notification like that as well.
I'm going to get to one last question. Is PM pollution more localized than ozone, and will additional meters be added? And then also considering large numbers of persons living close to interstates and transportation corridors.
You want that one, Ashley?
Well, PM can be more localized than ozone if you've got, say a diesel vehicle is idling next to your house or something of that nature. But a lot of it is regional. The determining how many monitors we have, it depends on the levels of the standards and the regulations. That's something where the State Division of Air Quality does a monitoring analysis and a monitoring plan every year that gets reviewed by EPA, and there's public participation. So that's something that they reevaluate every year. If the standard gets tightened, it's possible they could add more monitors. And what was the last part of that question?
maybe would those monitors be placed in positions where there's more people or along transportation corridors?
I
Right, they
think
have, go ahead, Brennan.
I think and sometimes some of the monitors are driven by the size of a metropolitan area, and I think the Myrtle Beach area, which flows into North Carolina, they may be looking at a new PM monitor down there. So some of it is dictated by the size of a population area and where monitors need to be placed and how many monitors.
Yes, and here in Buncombe County, we're actually going to be required to add another particulate matter monitor soon because we are approaching, I think it's 500,000 for our MSA. So that's a requirement that we're going to be adding that in the next couple of years, an additional PM10 monitor similar to Myrtle Beach. And, as far as the highways go, the bigger areas like Charlotte and the Research Triangle Park area, they've had to add near road monitors near the interstates there and track NOx emissions. And so that's something that is continuing to come into play also.
I just got one more question. It may be relevant, maybe not. How are companies you work with dealing with the need for backup energy sources to avoid what happened in Texas last year? Is that perhaps not an air quality question?
Yeah, I mean,
No, I think it's more of an energy question, right?
yeah. I mean, a lot of companies have emergency generators, but whether they can, I don't know if they can quite run the entire factory on those. It's more of emergency lighting and things like that. Yeah, more of an energy question.
All right. Well, Brendan and Ashley, thank you very much for your presentation and for all the work that you guys do on the clean air campaign and clean air issues in the region and in the state. And with that, I'll pass it now to Reed Conway. He is a senior energy specialist with the Department of Environmental Quality's State Energy Office. He's also a member of the Clean Air Campaign, and he joins us to share resources available for local governments to make energy efficiency improvements. Reed, thank you very much for your presentation this morning.
Thanks, Paul. Can you see my screen?
I sure can.
Okay, cool. Good morning, everybody. Reed Conway with the State Energy Office and part of the Utility Savings Initiative here in the state of North Carolina. And I'll spend a few moments talking about what the utility savings is. Let me see if I can move. Here we go. And so the Utility Savings Initiative was created back in 2002 to drive energy conservation across not only state facilities, but all governmental facilities here in North Carolina. So my tasks are to work with state agencies, the UNC system, all the community colleges, the K-12 schools, all counties, municipalities, and as time permits, anybody else who reaches out to me and needs assistance, I will work with them any way, shape, or form. So the main drive of the Utility Savings Initiative, again, is to manage utility consumption and cost. We serve everyone. We provide utility accounting, operation and maintenance advice. We do energy audits and facility assessments. We do a lot of awareness, education, outreach, and training. And for the most part, all of this is done in a non-COVID situation on site. It's hard to save energy sitting behind a desk. So I need to be in your facilities, walking around, talking, looking at what you have going on to be able to provide that assistance and know exactly what's going on. And the State Energy Office provides oversight of performance contracting. And so performance contracting is a funding mechanism as much as it is an energy service, energy savings tool. It allows you to reduce your utility budget and use those energy savings from that reduction to fund capital improvements. And so I think Matthew's going to talk a little bit more about this later, but if you're a good candidate for performance contracting, you're looking at utility budgets around $500,000 a year or more, and we're looking at cost of $1.40 or more a square foot. So think of it as paying for today's facility upgrades with tomorrow's energy savings. And so at the end of the day, this is what's important whenever I walk into a facility, is to try and figure out and understand and let the folks who I'm working with understand what a rate increase has. What impact do I have? How do we reduce our carbon footprint? And what can we do to save? And you fill in the blank, whether it's the environment, finite resources, money, whatever that blank is that you need to fill out, energy efficiency helps fill that in. So why is it important to understand why all these have an impact? Well, the Utility Savings Initiative within the State Energy Office collects utility data statutorily across the state for all the UNC system, the state agencies, and the community colleges. As you see from here, last year, those three groups represented a total utility spend of over $343 million here in North Carolina. So let that sink in just for a minute. That is almost $1 million a day in those three reporting entities that is being spent on energy and water across the state. And so if we think about a rate increase and we see something that comes up that says the rate is going up 5%, well, a 5% rate increase on $343 million means that taxpayers here in North Carolina are going to pay an additional $17 million the following year for that. And so if we break it even down even smaller to your local government, if you're spending $1 million in a 5% rate increase, that's $50,000 a year that you're going to have to pay for increased utility costs. That's $50,000 that could have went to a staff salary, could have went to some other program, could have went to some piece of equipment somewhere. So there is a big impact that a rate increase has, and being able to know what that impact is important within your facilities. So as we look at what North Carolina spends, you can see here a breakdown of what that is. We're spending about 47% of the overall spend in electricity. You can see propane, natural gas, fuel oil takes up another big piece, and so does water and sewer. So one of the big things that I would like to share is this slide here. Because of what we've been doing in North Carolina, the Utility Savings Initiative and the requirement to start reporting started in 2007 and 8. We had the American Reinvestment Act funds coming to North Carolina in the 2010 and 11 timeframe. We also had a change in the North Carolina Energy Conservation Code in 2012 going into 2013. And as you can see with the blue line, what that really means is the BTUs per square foot are continuing to go down as the state builds additional square footage. So that means we're building a better building throughout the state of North Carolina. And so as far as the State Energy Office goes, I'll stop and brag a little bit about what we do. Because of our program to date, we have avoided an additional $1.6 billion in energy cost for state-owned buildings here in North Carolina. Last year, we actually saved $8.5 million. In a normal non-COVID year, the Utility Savings Initiative is doing over 500 site visits a year, trying to help participants across the state With performance contracting, we've assisted 6 K-12 schools and a community college with more than 46 million in guaranteed savings. Right now we have 20 state projects going, and last year we have achieved over $21 million above guaranteed savings. The state owned facilities were part of DOE's Better Buildings Challenge, which was a 20% goal by 2025 from a 2008 goal. We met that in 2018. We set a new goal this year under Governor Cooper to reach 30% by 2028. We also continue to work with Governor Cooper's Executive Order 80 to drive state-owned buildings to a 40% goal. Currently, we're at 31% and headed that way within the next couple of years. We also fund the NC State Energy Management Diploma Series for state employees and local government employees across the state. And to date, we've run almost well over 500 folks through that program. And then we have just created a performance contracting university to provide education. That's going to be on our website about performance contracting, which is going to be real helpful. 25 modules of training just on performance contracting and the North Carolina requirements for that. As far as future initiatives for the Utility Savings Initiative, continue to make sure we reach Governor Cooper's goal of 40%, continue our outreach to K-12 schools, outreach and technical assistance, and we continue to look for funding opportunities to help those who we work with on an annual basis. And we're going to look to facilitate some energy manager regional meetings as we move out of COVID, and to try and bring folks together who are doing similar things, who can share experiences and knowledge with one another. So our recommendations moving forward are going to be, as always, LED lighting, supervisory control of facilities. This is being able to cut a building off or being able to set it back when the building is unoccupied. I'm continuing to amazed to see buildings that are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with folks not in them. That is just wasteful. Improve building automation systems, which is the way our heating and air systems are being controlled on the commercial side, as well as on the residential side. You know, being able to put those smart thermostats on to where we can set back our homes during the day when we're not there. And then buying equipment with energy efficiency in mind. We continue to need to engage faculty, staff, students, employees into whatever we're trying to do within our facilities to drive energy conservation. And the last one is submetering. While submetering does not save energy in and of itself, having the ability to figure out which building is offending and causing the more energy to be used, and being able to use that data to make some necessary improvements is key. So, Reed, what do we need to do is pretty much a simple list that we all grew up with. Cut stuff off, unplug stuff, do routine maintenance to equipment. We don't drive our cars 100,000 miles without changing the tires or the oil or anything else. Our equipment, our heating and air systems need that routine maintenance to continue to be energy efficient and to last longer. We need awareness. We need to think about scheduling classes. The last thing I want to be doing is walking onto a community college campus and see, 10 different buildings on at night when, could we put all of those classrooms into one building and only run one building at night? I don't know. Just think about scheduling classes. Are we buying the most efficient equipment? And then the last two, especially keep windows and doors closed. It just continues to amaze me to see folks prop doors open with HVAC on, open windows, that kind of thing. It just it just continues to bother me. So the state energy office is required to do annual reports, a biannual report on the utility consumption, and another biannual report on EO80. So it means an annual report. And you can see here's a copy of our annual report that we have out there. Here's the location it is and a link to our website to where both our comprehensive program reports located and our guaranteed energy savings report annually is located. And you can see we have the last 3 years there as well. So what does UC offer to all governmental units? On-site technical assistance, education with utility consumption. We provide assistance with working to create strategic energy plans and help prioritize energy savings initiatives. We provide education and guidance to governmental units interested in performance contract. And at the end of the day, we're here to try and lead by example for governmental units. And what we do with the Utility Savings Initiative is covered by your tax dollars. So when I show up, there's no charge. I'm a free service here in Western North Carolina and across the state to try and help drive energy conservation. So that's all I have, Paul. I'll stop sharing my screen.
I will invite on Terry Albrecht. He's the Director of Waste Reduction Partners, is another resource available for local governments. Terry, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you want to go to the presenter view on your slides, you're all set.
All right, well, fantastic. Reed, thanks for that overview. The Utility Savings Initiative is really a fantastic program and a huge resource for all governmental units out there. They really transformed the public building sector use and built capacity for better energy management across the state. So, and our Waste Reduction Partner Program has been very happy to be a strategic partner along the way. Again, my name is Terry Albrecht. I'm an engineer and I am the director of a program called Waste Reduction Partners. This is a special partnership program that is run by the Land and Sky Regional Council in partnership with our North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And my goal today is to share resources, technical resources that you can draw on to help you improve energy management, enact energy efficiency programs, and really take the next step towards reducing your impact on the environment, carbon, and so forth. Okay, so just in a nutshell, this Waste Reduction Partner Program is unique that we engage a team of 40 retired engineers, scientists, and business professionals across the state of North Carolina, and they in turn share their expertise back with organizations across the state on improving sustainability strategies. About half of our work is related towards energy efficiency and energy management, and the other half are some other sustainability strategies that we'll talk about. We work with about 150 clients a year, and we track the work and output of those clients very carefully. So just in the past 5 years, we've served over 275 clients just on energy efficiency alone, with them saving over $16 million in utility savings costs. So a lot of this stuff is, we focus on very practical solutions that people can implement and go forward with. I just want to mention our team. We have, again, 40 assessors that are located across the state from Wilmington to Murphy, so they can spend one-on-one time with your organization. And this is really just a stellar team of professionals. We have engineers who are chemical, electrical, mechanical engineers, environmental engineers. We have organic chemists. We have other business professionals that have run recycling businesses, and all those people just have so much expertise to share to help guide organizations in cost-effective strategies that can improve your environmental performance. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about these in detail. So our technical services, again, these are coming out from a governmental agency. So these are non-regulatory. We hold them in confidentiality, and these are, for the most part, no cost. So we're a grant-supported organization. We get grant support from Reed's organization at the State Energy Office and the USDA and others, and even utilities to help support this work. So I'm going to talk today about what we can do for you as far as energy efficiency and what that looks like. But I want to touch too about other things we do as far as resource conservation and other pollution prevention strategies. So we do a lot of work with water efficiency and waste reduction strategies for organizations as well. So I just want to spend a couple slides talking about those opportunities, just so you're aware, because many times these are going hand in hand in your sustainability goals, whether you're at a local government or you're a business. So just to mention, we work a lot with manufacturers on zero waste to landfill strategies. So lots of businesses are seeking to recycle more of their materials. We help connect folks with recycling vendors, and we can even do leaning approaches where there might be smarter manufacturing strategies so you don't produce that waste in the first place. Our team also can help one-on-one with waste sorts, where you might spill out one of your dumpsters on some 8 mil plastic and go through it and find out, what are we throwing out? What could we have recycled? Where can we do a better job? So just as an example, last year we worked with nearly 50 entities and helped divert over 5,000 tons from landfilling that would have otherwise ended up disposed. And there's a cost savings associated with that, not only in avoided disposal, but in resource efficiency. Also, speaking of resource efficiency, we have a big focus on our team on water efficiency strategies. And this is going to somewhat mimic the work that we do with energy. This is also a target area for the utility savings initiative as well. Water is a substantial cost to us. So we help people look at their utility bills. We help create a water balance. You may not be sub-metering water within your facilities, but we do a virtual balance that shows where you have the biggest opportunity. We come up with water savings measures. Commonly, we're recommending 5 to 25% in water use savings. And we really focus on the cost benefit analysis for you and our reports out back to our clients. We have some specific work where we're funded by the City of Asheville and City of Durham to work with their large water using customers to conserve more and to foster a water use ethic. And just here in City of Asheville, over the past 10 years, we've helped their larger water using clients save reduce costs by over $500,000 and cut water use by 67 million gallons per year. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and it's just a smart thing to be doing. Okay, so just a quick piece of kind of where we are and the kinds of things we do annually. So this is our accomplishments from last year. We worked again with about 100 clients, about half the counties in the state, and got 8,600 volunteer technical assistants out there with our engineers and scientists working one-on-one with you all. You can see these have significant utility savings, $600,000 last year. And if we look at over a 5-year period, our clients have saved over $24 million. And for this, in this context, and all the presentations we've heard today, that was 95,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalency of greenhouse gases that were not emitted to the atmosphere. And I do want to say that as I go through, I'm going to focus here on what we do in energy here. We're getting right to that. But about 65% of our recommendations from our engineers in our reports and feedback get implemented by the client. So a lot of these things are very tangible. Okay, so if we're going to work with your organization on some energy efficiency assistance, here is what we're going to do in that process, both before, during our site visit, and after. So we're going to help look at your utility bills and analyze those for potential cost-saving strategies or rate changes and so forth. We're going to be on site, probably spend a day with you, with a team of our folks to go through your facility, and we're going to target your process area and motors, whether that you're in manufacturing or this is a local government commercial space. We're going to look at heating and cooling, lighting, hot water. We're going to look at building envelope opportunities that are cost effective. That can include insulation. You know, we'll be looking at things like windows. They may or may not be something that you'd upgrade in a cost effective way, but we will look at all that. We'll be looking at peak demand reduction opportunities and what kind of policies you have that you may want to do that, and other policies and goals that you have overall. We really pride ourselves in getting benchmarking numbers so that you know on a energy usage per square foot or per widget or per student basis, you know where you stand with the age of your facility and what potential you might have for improvement. And then in all of our reports and feedback, we want you to understand your financing options. We are a governmental agency, so we don't have any skin in the game on this. So our efforts are non-biased, but we're going to connect you with, you're going to hear from folks from Duke Energy that may offer you rebates. We work with the USDA REAP program that might have grants available if you're rural and a small business. So we're going to try to connect you with any of the financing opportunities that might be available to you, even including performance contracting and the folks at the UC program. All of our reports, again, are providing this cost benefit analysis. So we're going to provide that wherever we have numbers for costs. And that is really to give you a ballpark of, you know, what should I do first? What's feasible? You know, what has a 2-year payback? What has a 5-year payback? And where should we start? So those are there. All of this information can be supporting a strategic energy plan, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later, but that's a really key thing that you heard Reed say that they really try to promote. So what does this mean for you, and what does this logistically look like if we're going to work with your organization on, say, an energy assessment? You're going to go to our website, this wastereductionpartner.org. You can get through it through the Land to Sky website or even through DEQ's website, and you're going to initiate a project. Our energy coordinator is going to talk to you about where you'd like to focus, and then we're going to collect some background information in a pre-assessment form that will include like a year's worth of utilities, you know, some major pieces of equipment that you have, so we have a good understanding when we come on site. Then we're going to do that on-site review, typically 1 day per building, say, on that, and then about a month later we'll be doing a follow-up report. While we're on site, though, we're going to do an exit survey with you and go over the key things that we see are opportunities, so you can get immediate feedback on, you know, where we see there might be cost-effective energy conservation measures that could be implemented. And then we'd like to follow up with our clients about 6 months later and to see how things are being implemented. Over here, you can see a little snapshot of a report summary where we have the energy conservation measure. We have what that might save, what the investment costs are and payback periods. And in some cases, we'll have greenhouse gas emission reductions associated with that. So that's what our assessment process looks like. Reed got into a few areas of, you know, where you might want to start and where some of the key opportunities are in building energy management. I thought that I would just share a few examples of projects that we've worked on to kind of show where you might have a fit on our services meeting your needs. So in the local government sector, a few years back, we heard Chairman Newman talk about their clean energy plans and their major investments. We were asked by the county to take a look at all 18 of the county's fire districts and review them for energy efficiency. So we reviewed about 33 buildings and came up with about $55,000 worth of low cost, easy to implement energy upgrades. And it's really exciting because the county has really stepped up and supported the implementation of those projects. So this is a picture right here of one of our assessors, George Gay, working with the team at the Fairview Fire District in Buncombe County. So that's an example of how we worked with the local government. We've done some interesting work with the city of Asheville too. The city of Asheville has a 100% renewable energy goal by 2030. So as they're doing facility upgrades, they have a big question is how do we do a carbon neutral HVAC or heating and cooling upgrade? And so we worked with them on one facility, the Shiloh Community Center, that had to upgrade a natural gas boiler. And they were trying to figure out, do we upgrade with natural gas when we want to go 100% renewable in the future? So maybe we should do an electric boiler, and what would that look like? So our engineers looked at that and decided that showed them the numbers that was not a good choice to go to an electric boiler. But what was a better choice was to back up and look at potentially a broader upgrade of an all-electric industrial heat pump or other systems if they want to, aggressively go towards, reducing their use of natural gas. So that was an interesting project. We also worked with the city of Asheville reviewing their water resources department's energy use at their 2 water plants and distribution centers. And I want to say, for any local government out there, your utility cost for water and sewer, if you're running a water and sewer system, could be your second highest cost after staff. So there are a lot of opportunities for energy savings in water and sewer, whether that's, even though that there might be inflexibility how you run those systems, we have consistently found a great deal of savings. And even in the city of Asheville's well-run systems, we identified over $90,000 worth of savings ahead through variable frequency pumps and other efforts that were cost effective. All this can help with strategic energy planning. I think we're going to have Heather Hockaday from Town of Burnsville talk about some work we did with them. But this is a process where we're really helping understand what the energy use is across a fleet of buildings, about all your buildings in your local government sector, about how you procure energy, where your benchmarks are, what you can do, and then an action plan to get those done. So we'll hear more about that. We've also worked a lot with schools and colleges. We helped AB Tech look at the life cycle savings of upgrading major pieces of equipment like chillers to make that upgrade before that chiller failed and show them the economics of the savings over time by having a higher efficiency unit in. So that's really helpful. We did some similar efforts with Asheville City Schools that help drive lighting improvement projects. And recently, we've even done some other technical assistance requests, such as with Cleveland County Schools that are Energy Star certified, and they report through Portfolio Manager, and they, reporting data for tens of schools, multiple utility accounts can get very complicated. So they were trying to figure out how to not double count and streamline that reporting, and our engineers helped with that. I know there's some business and manufacturers online, and so I just wanted to mention about half of our work is in that private sector as well as nonprofits, but just some interesting things we've done lately. Many entities are seeking a B corporation or even getting a renewal on their B Corp, and so we can help with the data requirements around energy efficiency projects and greenhouse gas reductions there. Many organizations right now are setting some zero or energy efficiency goals or even zero greenhouse gas goals. And so we're helping entities look at greenhouse gas emission inventories. And you might hear things like scope 1, 2, and 3 inventories for the private sector. So we're always doing that in our reports. We always show essentially scope 1 and 2 emissions in our reports, but we're putting a bigger focus on putting that information in front of our clients, and then most importantly, the action plan on how to make those reductions. So no project is out of the box for us, and we just want to let you know that we're available to help serve you. So here's our contact information. Again, you can initiate a project on the wastereductionpartner.org website. Russ Jordan coordinates our energy assessments, and Jan Harden, solid waste assessments, and my contact information is there as well. So I think with that, we're going to take, Reed and I are going to take a few questions, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Terry. I've invited Reed to come back on. There he is. Reed was pretty clear that the work that the State Energy Office can do is free. Is that the case for Waste Reduction Partners as well?
Yes, yeah. So we are grant supported. So we're offering the assistance that I just described at no cost to both local government, governmental clients, schools, and businesses.
And
Paul, what I would say is a lot of times, sometimes I'll do some of the initial legwork with some of these governmental entities, and since our office helps fund Terry and his program, it's a good working relationship for me to be able to go in, do some preliminary work, and understand what's going on, and know that they could benefit from what Terry does at Waste Reduction Partners. And so a lot of times I may offer some of Terry's services along with what I do. And so we've worked hand in hand for many, many years. So.
And also, been talking about it land to sky and out west, but your resources are available across the state.
Correct. And so are Terry's. So.
All right. Well, with that, I am going to bring on Heather Hockaday. She worked with both of you on projects last year. So I'll hear from Heather. She is the town administrator and town attorney for the town of Burnsville. Burnsville is the county seat of Yancey County in the western part of the state with a population of just around 2,000. Burnsville partnered with Reed at the State Energy Office and Terry at Waste Reduction Partners, and she joins us for her insights on what local governments can expect when utilizing these resources. Heather, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Paul. It's good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. I'm curious to know what motivated Burnsville to work with the State Energy Office and Waste Reduction Partners. What were you all hoping to gain from that partnership?
Well, I think as any small town will tell you, we're always looking to find some way to reduce cost, save money. You know, it's difficult when you're a smaller size community to have a lot of extra cash flow. And so we were motivated to see if there were ways that we could save with our energy cost. We had had Rural Water Association do a audit of both our water and our sewer plant. And after that, I asked staff to pull a year's worth of our energy bills just to see, you know, what we were spending annually. And, you know, for a town our size, we spend around $275,000 a year just in energy costs. And I think as Terry had mentioned earlier, a lot of that is from water production and wastewater treatment. That's where we see, you know, our largest percentage of our energy cost is going. But I connected with Reed, and he suggested working with Waste Reduction Partners on a plan, a proposed strategic plan for our town hall mainly. We don't have a lot of other facilities. I think, well, we have a fire department and a community building that we operate. So we wanted to kind of look at those. It was during COVID, so they couldn't really come out early on in the pandemic, couldn't really come out and meet with us face to face. So we did a lot of emailing and talking on the phone back and forth. We worked with George Tregay and Greg Goodman on our project, and they came up with sort of a strategic plan, gave us some categories of what we could look at in terms of as we went forward, saving on our energy cost.
So what were the key takeaways from that report?
Well, I think the key takeaways were just actually breaking down each segment of the town's operations and looking at where we were spending the largest percentage on energy and trying to think about going forward, you know, when we made changes in equipment, even changes in line sizes and things like that on the water side of things, how that would affect, you know, keeping in mind how this is going to affect energy consumption. It brought it sort of to the forefront. We have a aging, as most of North Carolina, I think I read a statistic, something like $30 billion worth of infrastructure improvements on the water and sewer side are needed in the state of North Carolina right now. Burnsville's no exception to that. Our system is aging. We're in the process of trying to overhaul and find out where we can get funding to make changes in our collection and distribution systems, but also at our plants. And so we want to be mindful as we change equipment out, either at the plants or pump stations, where we can get equipment that is going to be more energy efficient, more energy conscious.
So has that been a challenge to implement some of the recommendations outlined in the report? What have been your challenges to put those things to action?
Well, basically money. That's the biggest challenge. I mean, when you're talking about replacing some of these things, just to go out and replace something that is still working, still operational with newer equipment, is not really an option for a community our size. We sort of have to look at what's in the most dire needs and try to go at it from that perspective, which is frustrating, because what you would like to do is just say, okay, we know that this is so many years old and that there's a newer model or some kind of attachment to it that would make it a lot better. But it's just finding the funding to do those sorts of things. Typically, there's a lot of funding if something breaks and the Department of Environmental Quality gets involved. But there's only so much a small community like ours can borrow, go into debt service for. But definitely, I think this report was worthwhile, because now as we see things that break or getting close to the end of their useful life, or we're having problems with, we can incorporate thoughts of what can we get that's going to be most energy efficient, which I don't think was really, in the past, a consideration.
I'm curious to know how any political perceptions of energy efficiency or green infrastructure may have helped or hurt this project. Burnsville, a small town in the western part of the state, may be more conservative than Asheville, Buncombe County, and I'm just curious to know whether that was a consideration in this work.
I think that is true. It didn't necessarily affect the work we did with Waste Reduction Partners. I mean, first of all, the fact that they don't have a fee is very helpful. Nobody is going to turn away free data. So that's a pretty easy sell. I think that being able to show people going forward, no matter what side of the environmental questions that they may be on, that this is going to save us money in the long run. I think most people, if you present it to them reasonably like that, can be in favor of it. For us, and had this discussion with Reed, going out and just converting everything to solar is not really a possibility. We have to start first looking at what we can do about the equipment that we have, make it more efficient, newer, add to it, before we take that leap into going towards, some kind of complete renewable energy goal. Because number one, we don't have the number of facilities someplace like Buncombe County does. And number two, the cost is prohibitive for us.
When you think about the resources that Burnsville needs to implement some of those energy efficiency measures that were outlined in that program, in addition to funding, is there any other gap that is needed to help bring those to life?
I think funding is the first one, but I think any type of information that we can get out to the public to let them know, taking these steps, being mindful of these measures, always having them as part of our equation when we make policy decisions is going to save the taxpayer money in the long run. I think any kind of information we can get that sort of shows that is extremely helpful.
Is there any advice or anything you'd want to say to your colleagues in town administration about the projects that you entered into?
Well, I think it's well worth the time. I think it's, you know, I wear a lot of hats here at the town. I mean, I'm the attorney, I'm the manager, I'm the tax collector. Pretty much everybody else that works here has more than one job title, one area that they're covering. So it's kind of, you know, it's hard to think of something like that that's not, you know, in your everyday task list. But it's worth the time to do it. And particularly because Land of Sky Waste Reduction Partners, Reed and his group make it so easy to get this information. And it's definitely, I think, worthwhile in pursuing.
I just want to invite Reed and Terry back on. One more question I had would be, what are the first steps after initiating, reaching out to you guys? What kind of data or information should towns collect to get these projects started?
And so the big thing, Paul, is just reach out, because I'm going to set up a site visit, and we're going to come and go face to face so that I can sort of begin to understand what your pain levels are. And at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing I think that Heather mentioned, was it began a conversation with the town of Burnsville by exactly how much we are spending in utilities, to where we could start categorizing where those little buckets of energy funds are going. So, you know, for me, it allows me to be able to, you know, understand and make a better suggestion, because I don't want to tell Heather that, you know, you need to change LEDs to move to LEDs when, you know, that's only a small part of her budget, where the bigger budget would be to try and do some variable speed drives or change some motors on some wastewater equipment and some water pumping and moving water, because that's where the real savings is going to be identified on our utility bill. And so, but again, just reaching out, having that initial conversation to say, hey, Reed, I want you to come out. We talk about this. And that's where it starts. So.
And I think that was extremely helpful, because today, when you think about energy savings, everybody thinks about, oh, you know, transferring off of what you already have, doing something totally different. And we really didn't know where to start. I mean, so just start having that initial conversation with Reed and saying, okay, step one is, what are you doing and where are your costs going? You know, where's your money flowing to? And what can we do about that was extremely helpful. It focused us to come to a plan.
One last question, Heather. You talked about the limited resources in the town of Burnsville and all the different hats you're wearing. Was going through this process, was it a difficult for Burnsville to go through the process, allocating resources, the time to do these consultations?
No, it was not. And like I said, we did not, after our initial meeting with Reed, we didn't meet face to face. You know, we had virtual meetings, but it was not. I mean, they were Waste Reduction Partners was great. The questionnaire they sent out, you know, was very thorough. And we basically just had, at the time, our public works director just go through the list, and then there was some back and forth where they needed more information, but it was all stuff that was pretty readily available. So it was not, we didn't find it cumbersome at all. We found it a good process.
That's great. Anything else any of you want to add? I really appreciate your time, Reed and Terry. Thanks for your work on energy efficiency improvements. Heather, thank you very much for joining and sharing your insights from local governments. And
Thank you.
yeah, Heather spoke about funding these projects being a challenge, and hopefully the resources that we'll share at this part of the webinar will maybe help bring these energy efficiency and renewable energy projects to life. Here to lead that conversation is Sophie Molinak. She's the program director of the Blue Horizons Project. She is also a Clean Air Campaign member, and she's going to lead a conversation with Wendy Fleener, who will speak about Duke Energy programs available to finance renewable energy and energy efficiency programs. Matthew Davis is here with the State Energy Office, and Katie Librato with NC Green Power will address programs they have in place for schools and some pilots they're hoping to bring to life for municipalities. Sophie, thank you very much for leading this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so good to be here again with all of these folks who are rowing in the same direction toward clean energy. And as a result, oops, am I freezing?
You're still there.
Oh, bummer. All right.
You want me to run?
Let me see if I can close some windows. Sometimes when I share my screen, it gets a little buggy here. I'm going to close a couple other things. I apologize for this. Let's see.
Everyone is familiar with tech headaches.
Yeah, I know.
That's looking good.
Okay, you're looking good, and you can. I'm not too buggy. Great. Anyway, my name's Sophie Molinax. I am the project manager of the Blue Horizons project here in Asheville and Buncombe County. And as I said, it's great to be here and to be listening to all these folks who are coming from different seats and rowing in the same direction toward cleaner energy and better air quality here for all of us and our future generations. And that's really why the Blue Horizons project came into existence. So I'm just going to give a brief intro, and then I'll turn it over to our other folks to have a conversation about funding opportunities. Blue Horizons project was born out of the Energy Innovation Task Force in Buncombe County that consisted of local government, businesses, nonprofits, community leaders to address our region's energy use. We have a winter peak demand here, unlike much of the Southeast that has a summer peak. So on the coldest winter mornings, 6 to 10 days a year, we have an incredible spike in energy called peak demand. Sure, you're all familiar with that when it's 15 degrees outside at 6 a.m. and we're all turning on our hot water heaters to take showers, cooking, our heat is kicking in. That's when we see our biggest demand spike, and that's really driving the need for more power generation to be installed in our community. Oh, it looks like I froze again. Are we okay?
You're on what is the Blue Horizons project?
Yeah, okay.
I'll see if I can get your presentation.
That's okay. I think I'll keep going, and I hope for the best. So to address our peak demand, our goal is to enlist public support and provide our community with resources and programs and technical assistance to reduce our energy use, to specifically reduce peak demand, but also to move toward a cleaner energy future with energy efficiency as the foundation of that strategy. We all know that the less energy you use, the less you need to produce. So the focus on energy efficiency, I believe, and we believe here, is critical to prepare for the adoption of more renewable energy. You know, folks earlier spoke about how the less energy you use, the less natural gas needs to be burned at our local power plants. So our work looks like the Blue Horizons Project Community Council administering this group that is the next iteration of the Energy Innovation Task Force. It has a similar makeup and it advises the work. Energy Savers Network, which is a weatherization program for low-income Buncombe County residents. In 2021, we're just finishing up now a Solarize campaign where we had a group purchase program for solar energy for residents and businesses. That had a low income component as well as workforce development component. For commercial energy efficiency, we act as a referral towards Duke Energy Resources and to Land of Sky Waste Reduction Partners. We do a lot of work for community engagement. All right, sorry, I'm just restarting. For community engagement, we engage with the community virtually right now, but previous to the pandemic, we are often at community events, doing presentations, meeting with classes, church groups, neighborhood associations, just to get the word out about how we use energy here in our community and what the implications are, and to get everyone on board with actions that they can take to reduce their energy use and adopt more renewable energy. A key part of our work right now is a 100% renewable energy by 2042 strategic planning process. And we have a subcommittee of the Blue Horizons Project Community Council working on this. There's just a few more in-depth slides. Energy Savers Network provides free weatherization upgrades and energy efficiency products to income qualified residents of Buncombe County. These are folks who are at 200% of the federal poverty level or below. There's a big focus on mobile homes. There's 18,000 mobile homes in Buncombe County, and as we know, they are not held to the same building standard that our traditional site-built homes and buildings are. So they tend to have a lot of room for improvement in terms of their building envelope and air quality and insulation. We rely on volunteers to do this work. We have building science trained leaders for these projects, but primarily it is volunteers who are being trained to do this work, which is a great way to collaborate with the community. And we often have clients that we serve come and volunteer on future projects. And it's a really impactful and meaningful project that we work on. We've been doing evaluation, measurement, and verification on these projects, and we've been able to have blower door tests that demonstrate we can reduce air leakage by up to 40% in a particular home. The average is about 20 to 30%, and we've served 1,000 homes since 2016. And speaking of funding, the funding for Blue Horizons Project comes from the City of Asheville and Buncombe County Sustainability Offices. We have recently been successful in obtaining some COVID Recovery American Rescue Plan Act funding, specifically towards reducing costs for disproportionately impacted people of the pandemic, and Duke Energy as well for Energy Savers Network and private donors. Another thing that we do is this program called Home Energy Chats, which was really born out of the pandemic. We were wondering, okay, we're all virtual now, how can we engage in our community? So we launched this program virtually called Home Energy Chats, and we give home energy consultations to anyone in Buncombe County for free to help them prioritize their home energy projects, answer their questions about, hey, how do I choose a new hot water heater? Or my room in my house is really cold. Or what are the things that will save me money the most? How do I prioritize what my house needs? We offer referrals to local contractors and a robust sort of follow-up packet that's tailored to their questions and their needs. And we've served about 30 or 40 clients to date. And this program has really been taking off recently. The Solarize campaign that launched early last year is wrapping up right now. The contracts that we had 182 contracts signed, near 1.5 megawatts of new renewable energy here installed in Buncombe County, and just an incredible amount of investment in local clean energy development. And we ran this campaign because it was recommended from a report for the City of Asheville and Buncombe County that gave different pathways towards 100% renewable energy. And one of the recommendations from that report was to run Solarize campaigns every 2 to 3 years. And so this was the first one in Asheville and Buncombe County since 2013, 2014. Through the Solarize campaign, it was very important to us to have a pathway for folks who could not generally afford solar energy systems. So we set some income guidelines of people making less than the area median income. So people in the 0 to 70% of their area median income qualify for free solar energy systems. We had 140 people sign up for this, and we're able to grant 12 solar systems to date. This program is continuing beyond the Solarize campaign's end. And we've been able to get some more funding for this to allow this program to continue for the next 2 years, we hope, and hopefully serving at least 10 to 20 more qualifying households. I'll say that it is harder to qualify these households because of the integrity of roof, site orientation. Ideally, these homes also would have been served by our Energy Savers Network program so that their energy load is reduced first before installing renewable energy. And then lastly, our 100% renewable energy by 2042 strategic planning. This is a 2-year process that's looking at our energy data here in the county, Buncombe County, and what it'll take to get to 100% renewable energy from a technical, policy, regulatory, financial, land use, and community engagement consideration. So this process is well underway. We have some technical experts who are working on this, but we also have community members, and this process and the meetings for making this plan are open to the public. And in the next week or two, we're launching a community engagement pathway for this because we know that the community needs to be involved in having a say of how we reach 100% renewable energy. So thank you for bearing with me in my slight technical difficulties. I do apologize. I have a partner here who works from home as well, and it could be that he is on a video call as well. My contact info is here, and I'm excited to pass it on to Matthew, Katie, and Wendy. First, let's hear from Matthew Davis, who is an energy specialist with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Energy Office.
All right, thank you. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Looks good.
All right, great. So, hey everybody, my name is Matthew Davis. I'm with the State Energy Office, and today I'm going to provide a little bit of a background on different funding streams and for energy efficiency and renewable energy. Just some background on what we are doing, our priorities, and also some collaborative efforts that we see upcoming in the future. So basically, our problem statement here is, there's many communities across North Carolina that are paying a disproportionately high amount of income on their energy bills. So, many of these communities are directly impacted by the health and pollution impacts resulting from energy production, generation, and transportation. These compounding factors mean that affected communities are at least able to reap the benefits of investments in clean energy and EE, and while also being most impacted by the legacy energy industry. So just at a high level, we're going to dive a little bit deeper in a minute into some funding, but I just wanted to show some of our funding streams that are coming through our office at this point in time. What we're doing in, one, we're aligning with the Clean Energy Plan, but two, we're focusing on, Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. So just so you know, for those of you that have not heard of this, is the Department of Commerce annually updates counties in North Carolina based on what they call tiers. So the 40 most distressed counties are designated as a Tier 1. The next 40 are a Tier 2, and the least distressed are considered to be a Tier 3. So as you can see in this map here, a large majority of North Carolina is a Tier 1 or Tier 2 county. So there's a lot of opportunities to target these. And what we're trying to do in our office is to target these underserved and disadvantaged communities in Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. So as you can see here on the right, on the eastern part of the state, there's a large chunk right here that's light gray, and also a Tier 2 right here. But then in the western portion of the state, there is also a relatively large amount of Tier 1 and Tier 2 as well. So with that being said, what we're trying to do with the funding coming through our office, whether it be from the American Rescue Plan Act or from the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, is we're trying to align these funding streams with priorities that our department has with the Clean Energy Plan. So two things that we're looking at here, we'll also have two on the next slide, is equitable access and providing a just transition. So recommendation I3 is basically addressing energy programs and energy affordability for disadvantaged communities. And J1 is we want to ensure that historically marginalized individuals are included in programs that would positively impact their health and also reduce energy consumption and cost. All right, so for the next slide is one thing that is near and dear to our heart as well is grid modernization, resilience, and the human cost of power outages. So for this, for recommendation D, more or less, what we're looking at is modernizing to support clean resources, such as DERs, aka microgrids. But also in recommendation E is we want to strengthen resilience and flexibility of the grid to for extreme weather events, to build back quickly and to be resilient and to basically be prepared before an event, stabilize during the event, and be quickly stabilized after the event. So this is a current funding that we currently have right now in our office that during this federal fiscal year. So this funding will expire on September 30th of this year, but just wanted to give you a snapshot of the little bit of the background of where we got it from and then what we're doing for local governments and public schools, just one project out of it. So with ARPA, we're receiving funding straight through the DHHS's or Department of Health and Human Services low-income home energy assistance program. So basically, this program, or LAHEAP for short, is assist low-income homeowners with staying warm in the winter and staying cool in the summer. So the program emphasizes reducing the energy burden for disadvantaged groups, and our office is working with academic, utility, and nonprofit partners to develop over 20 programs that will target low-income areas in North Carolina in rural, disadvantaged communities in Tier 1, Tier 2 counties to really bring projects that are forward-thinking, next level, and that will assist with building programs and creating self-sustaining demand for projects. So we received over $13 million, a little over $13 million to support this program, and we're through our weatherization and our state energy program. So we're really excited about this funding opportunity because all of our projects align with those clean energy plans that recommendations that you just saw. So one that I want to highlight that is up and coming that we're developing at this moment in time is a project for rural K-12 public schools in these Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties with an emphasis on them. Doesn't mean that you can't touch Tier 3 county, but we're really trying to focus on Tier 1 and Tier 2 because we do understand that there are some low-income areas in Tier 3 counties and census blocks, but we want to touch areas that haven't had the resources or the capacity or the ability to apply for funding to reduce their energy burden. So this is a great project that we are currently in the development phase of. We're working with NC Green Power, the department, and also primarily, but then also some sub partners will be the Department of Public Instruction and electric utilities. So our approach in this is to more or less, we created a list of low schools that we consider to have the highest energy burden based on data from the Department of Public Instruction in these Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. And what we did was we are providing that to NC Green Power for them to, upgrade lighting in gymnasiums and elementary schools with an emphasis on elementary schools. It could be middle or high school, but we're really focusing on these elementary schools. It'll be a turnkey project. And the reason why we're doing gyms is because it's, they typically are not updated or they have higher wattage lighting. They could be metal halide or even fluorescent lighting. And it also allows us to have a single design that we could potentially apply across multiple schools to streamline this because of the timeline. So what we're doing here is we want to upgrade between 20 to 40 public schools with this funding, but also service those that are in electric cooperative and municipal utilities, because a lot of them don't necessarily have the rebates available that are under Duke or Dominion. But also as part of this project, we're going to quantify the energy savings. So this is something that is current, like I said, in development. We want schools, districts, and schools to be a part of this. So if you're interested, just want to put this on your radar, Green Power is working with us, and we are focusing on those counties that we showed that map in those light gray and the dark and the little slightly darker shade of gray. And all of this will be completed by September 30th of this year. So there will be a lot of work done in a short amount of time, and we're excited about it. The next thing is, as you all probably have heard from Reed earlier, is we have current financing mechanisms, not funding, but financing mechanisms that you can also use in local governments and schools, from performance contracting. So I'm not going to go into extreme detail on this, but more or less, you can definitely apply for performance contracting to fund major facility upgrades, and more or less these contracts you get a guaranteed payback on it. So when you get through the process of it, at the end, you will recuperate the entire cost of the project plus more savings overall. I mean, pretty much all of them have more. But as part of this process, you have a qualified energy service provider, which is on our state list on our website, that will compete to do these projects, and they will implement these measures in the schools based on what will provide the greatest paybacks. And then, as always, all these have to be approved by the local government commission. And before I move on, our report is on our website. So if you come to that link at the bottom of this slide, if they share the slide deck, you can check our report, and it shows all the areas in North Carolina that have been touched by these performance contracts and has a lot of good detail. And this report was just published in December. So feel free to take a look at that. So this is probably the one that everybody's real interested in the slides, if I put it last, is, we have future funding opportunities funneling through our office through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So we're expected to receive funding allocations through our state energy program and our weatherization assistance program between federal fiscal years 22 to 26. The state energy program funds will last for around 5 years based on the legislation, and weatherization will last for until the funds are expended. So each program will receive roughly 10 times as much as their typical annual operating budget. So as a snapshot of some nationally competitive programs that outside of the state allocations, so they're going to get that 10 times just for state allocation, which they can also use for state energy program, can use for EE projects, and weatherization can do for weatherization activities. But outside of their state allocation, in these colorful the colorful text here, these are some nationally competitive programs that we really want to push for, because to get money, because we want as much money as possible to come to North Carolina. So everybody on this call, these are things that we just a snapshot. This isn't everything, but this is a snapshot of things that I thought that you would all be interested in. A lot of the other ones, an example is carbon capture and et cetera. So but these are the ones that had energy efficiency related items and resilience. So for the purple text for energy, there's a funding allocation for energy auditors and training, and each state can get a maximum amount of up to $2 million. So this is a great opportunity for North Carolina to get training for energy auditors and actually do the audits. So that's awesome. So we would love to pair up with a group to do this. Also, there's grants for energy efficiency, renewable energy improvements at public schools. So this should raise everybody's antenna, because there's a national allocation of about $500 million that can be pursued. This isn't just for North Carolina, this is a national amount. So we can, try to get as much money as possible to North Carolina from this. And these projects will be coming. They will, we would love to pair up to apply at the federal level. Then the last one is building energy codes and technical assistance and training. So this is something that North Carolina really needs, that we really need to focus more on our building codes. And there's a great, $225 million for that. But this is, just so you know, that these are estimates, because federal guidance hasn't, to my knowledge, hasn't been released at this point regarding the exact allocations, the criteria to apply, and the matching requirements for these competitive ones. So with that being said, this is the high-level overview of the federal funding that is coming to North Carolina, and we are really excited to do this. I will note that for the programs that are not competitive through the state energy program and the weatherization assistance program, they will require an RFP process. So it's going to be, our office will develop the RFP, post it, and then you can apply for it. But for the nationally competitive programs, we would love to pair up to actually have robust projects that we could pursue and bring this money to our state. So, this is great. And one thing I will note for the EE improvements at public schools is that it could also include alt fuel vehicle upgrades. And it can also, so we would like to consider reaching out to the schools and school districts to go after this. So that's pretty much the bulk of the presentation. And if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We will definitely have some more questions for you, I'm sure, but I want to move now to hear from Wendy Fleener, who's the manager of Renewable Attribute Solutions with Duke Energy.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me okay, or it looks like it. So virtual conference is here. So nice to meet everybody. Thanks for the introduction. Wendy Fleener, actually born and raised in Buncombe County. So, and that was mentioned earlier, I'm from Black Mountain, currently live in Charlotte, but actually calling you from Florida today. So we have operations throughout the country. And so I'm going to pull up a couple of slides, just a little bit about what our organization does and how Duke can assist. So give me just a minute here. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Okay, hopefully you guys can see my screen in a good fashion. I only have one screen here with me today, so I'm having trouble being able to see both versions.
We have it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let me kind of just hide this here. So Duke Energy, I think most, if not all on the phone are familiar with us, but just a couple of fast facts for you. And what I would really just kind of draw attention to is kind of this point here at the bottom. You know, Duke Energy, we are here on this sustainability journey with you. We are working towards being net carbon by 2050. Specifically in the Carolinas, we're working towards approximately 70% by 2030. So, you know, when I think of organizations and how you're looking at your goals, you know, you've kind of got the almost like the top number here. So what is our usage and what is our goal? And so, you know, I know we talked about energy efficiency, and then, you know, one of the things that I talk to customers about, well, let's talk about your generation mix from Duke Energy. And so that way, if your organization can go ahead and kind of count that towards your goals as well, and then work with you on what the delta is to get to example if you have 100% goals. So specifically, I'm a manager in our Clean Energy Solutions group. So we really do three main things. So we develop, implement, and then manage solutions to help customers get to where they want to be. So just some of the other programs that I won't be highlighting today, but that we do offer in a variety of fashions, depending on where you are. We have a set of what I would call like a large customer solutions where they would be building any type of new renewable resource, but typically it's solar, still bringing on something to the local grid, but it's more of a financial mechanism. In certain jurisdictions, we have community or shared solar that are able to subscribe to. We have some REC purchasing programs. So if you kind of think about, you know, you still want to be able to make the claim or get the credit for the renewable energy without actually having the generation. Kind of if you envision kind of a piece of Velcro, you can kind of pull apart the renewable energy and you have the RECs, the renewable energy certificates or credits. And so we help connect customers in a variety of ways. Specifically, you know, you can buy X blocks to kind of match the usage goals. And so we're always working on new things too. So, you know, when I kind of think about what we have today, that is quickly changing. So just even recently, this past year, there was some new legislation, House Bill 951. As part of that, it had language specifically for additional kind of customer solutions. So, you know, we are already kind of underway in figuring out what these next, you know, kind of offerings are going to be. So I would say stay tuned always. And then for today, what I wanted to really talk to you guys about is, since this was focusing on incentive type programs, is our North Carolina Solar Rebate Program. So this program also came out through some legislation. It was called HB 589. It was a 5-year program. So time has gone by quickly. It's hard to kind of imagine that we're already here in the 5th year. And so, you know, a couple of things is that, you know, in the state of North Carolina, Duke Energy does have kind of 2 business units. So That's kind of the map here. So we do have the Duke Energy territory, kind of, myself here in Charlotte. You can see then Asheville kind of on both sides of the Duke Energy progress. The reason I do bring it up is because of part of the program, there's some carve outs specific to each of the jurisdictions. So just kind of some of the facts for you. So residential customers can apply up to 100 kW. Non-residential, so anybody else can do 100. And so the program total, as I mentioned, was 5 years. It was a 100 megawatt program. And then it was split out each year 2 times a year between Duke Energy Carolinas, or the DEC, and then the Duke Energy Progress. And so today too, I'm going to really wanted to focus on some of this nonprofit kind of carve out that we have available, because there were specific set asides for that. And in part of the nonprofit, I know Katie's going to speak soon with that organization, but we also then through that program for the solar in schools, they can apply for additional rebate to help make those projects more affordable. So a couple other things. So we are in year 5. What is going to happen is that if there's any unused capacity at the end of the 5th year, so the end December 31st of 2022, we are going to have kind of a rollover year. And so basically any of the unused capacity, it's kind of going to be like a final opening of the program. So specifically for nonprofits, we do have capacity that's available. So I just want to kind of talk through what that would look like, because we would love to see as many organizations take advantage of that this year before it goes to any eligible customer. So the program has changed. If you guys have heard about it in the past, when it first kind of came about, it was more, first come, first serve type of thing. So if you kind of think concert tickets when you got on your computer and pushed the button, time has kind of changed. And so now we're doing something that we want to make sure is kind of as fair and equitable for everybody. And it's a random selection process. So twice a year, we have a application period or window that opens. So that way, again, you don't have to be on your computer pushing the button at the exact same time, but you have a week-long period. And so we just closed our January window for 2022. The capacity for non-residential customers and homeowners is fully subscribed. So though the window is still open for any nonprofits, so that will continue on, but kind of the next round of the big open enrollment, which again, it just means anybody during that week period can submit their application, and then it's randomly sorted for who gets assigned the capacity. But that will happen again and open back up on July 6th and will run through July 13th. How much can you get? Always an important thing to think about. And so for non-residential customers, and so it's based on the installation size of the project that you would build. So on your property can get up to 30,000 or the 30 cents per watt. Residential is 40 cents a watt or up to $4,000. Those have adjusted over the life of the program just to be in line with the cost of solar as well as the interest of the program to make sure as many people can participate as possible. The one kind of bucket of customer rebates that has not changed is the nonprofit. So as the highest you can see there at 75 cents and a max of $75,000. What you get paid on, so it's based on the size of the system. I have this as reference and we'd be happy to send out to you of how you would calculate that. So kind of the key thing here, so we have quite a bit of nonprofit capacity available. So you can see here it's right about 5.5 megawatts, and that is for each of the jurisdictions. So locations in either Duke Energy Progress, Duke Energy Carolinas, the nonprofit definition, and so that is really anybody that is considered tax exempt. You could definitely, as defined by the Department of Revenue, or look that up. So it's actually, I think, sometimes a broader scope than other folks would think of. And then what I've included here for you guys as reference, it's the link to the program. That's where you would go on there and apply. You'd be able to see any of the terms and conditions. We also do continuous updates of where the capacity is, what's available, as well as some important FAQs. And so after, I know we've got another speaker, and so look forward to any questions you guys may have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thanks.
And now I'll pass it to Katie Labrato, Marketing Communications Director with NC Green Power. It's great to see you, Katie.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everyone who's given me a great introduction so far. You guys are teeing me up quite nicely. Let me start the presentation here. All right, everybody got that good?
You're not in presenter mode, but we can see your slides.
Oh, great. Okay,
There you go. We're
there. Just took a second. Great. So most of my slides are lovely photos of our Solar Plus Schools program. But before I get into that part, in case some of you aren't familiar with who NC Green Power is, I wanted to just go over that very briefly. We were the first independent statewide program in the United States that has the structure that we do. And as far as I know, we're still the only one. So we're a nonprofit that works across the state with all the utilities to offer a green power program. We were created by the North Carolina Utilities Commission, so we do have oversight from them. Any major program changes do go through the Utilities Commission. And of course, when we first launched, a lot of partners were in those stakeholder meetings. Utilities, folks who work with all the technologies that we support, environmental groups, and of course, consumers like myself. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Anyone can contribute through your utility bill. I contribute through my Duke bill. Duke customers support our Solar Plus Schools program. And then the municipalities and the cooperatives customers, their donation is split between the Solar Plus Schools program and our renewable energy program. Everything we do is in North Carolina. Although our carbon offsets can be regional, South Carolina or Virginia, to date, all the projects we've supported have been in our own state. And we're administered by Advanced Energy. So we call them our parent company. Some of you may have already worked with them. They're a nonprofit consulting firm. They've worked across the globe with various stakeholders and organizations, including Habitat for Humanity, the Department of Energy, and they also have a number of unique certifications, including being a nationally recognized certification program for electric motors. Their Motors Drive Lab work with wastewater treatment facilities who are members of the federal SWIFT program. So some of the things that NC Green Power can offer, some of these are purchases, some of these are donations, and some of them are funded by federal or state funds. So one of our major products, as most of you know, we offer local renewable energy credits and carbon offsets. That could be for a LEED building, it could be for your sustainability goals, travel offsets, even events. There are lots of groups across the state who have worked with us to provide a donation to minimize that footprint of their event. We also recently launched the service for carbon verification. And so we work in partnership with Advanced Energy to provide that for customers who need both an assessment and a verification of carbon offset. And again, going back to Advanced Energy, they have a lot of energy efficiency programs. Some of those are funded by a service account that comes in through the utilities, and some of them are funded more privately. We also have an outreach arm called Plug In and See that some of you may have heard of. They consult on EV infrastructure and help folks look into what it would be to take their vehicle fleet to electric from the conventional gas, of course. We also offer presentations that can be on any topic that's of interest to your group. Those are, of course, no cost. It would either be myself or another staff member. And we also have volunteers across the state that help us with those as well. And I also want to talk a little bit about some pilots that I think would be interesting to you guys. We are starting to launch a pilot to help munis with sustainability goals. We've been talking a lot with cities and towns across the state, counties as well, working with them to figure out where they have some holes in their goals, where they need help trying to reach those milestones. And so we're working to get funding to help a muni provide that information to them, work with them for assessments and anything that they can, any projects they can actually complete using our guidance. We're also looking at potentially doing some larger community solar projects, solar on affordable housing. Of course, Matthew mentioned earlier that we're working with them in the future for a lighting retrofit. And in addition to our Solar Plus Schools grant program, we were very fortunate last year, we were able to award 3 schools with free energy audits. So I'll just go launch right in to talk about the Solar Plus Schools program. We had a pilot for 5 years. It was approved as a full program in 2019. All K through 12 schools are eligible. It could be any private or public school. The application is open now. It's open through the end of February. So if you know of any schools in your area who might be interested, please encourage them to apply. They'll get a 5 kW system. Any sponsors of the array, larger donors will have permanent recognition on signage that lives on the array. They also get data monitoring equipment, a weather station, other things that are very valuable to the teacher. This is an example of one of the online portals. This is from Cove Creek Elementary School. We also provide the teachers with training because we understand that just giving them a solar array doesn't mean they're going to be able to confidently use that in their classrooms. So we provide a full day training. They also get hands-on energy kits and booklets to use in their classroom. Again, this is Cove Creek School, one of the ones I mentioned earlier. They were one of our pilot recipients of the energy efficiency audit. We've also been in close contact with them because they have a lot of other green initiatives going on, such as the butterfly garden, and they're working on some other outdoor learning opportunities. This particular project was quite rewarding. The Edgecombe Early College is on the campus of a community college, and the student there cutting the ribbon was able to take classes through the college to complete some certifications and start his solar career. And all of that was due to being involved with our program. Also, we have installed across the state at other schools. We recently awarded NC Solar Now to be our flagship solar installer. So they're doing all of the installations for 3 years of the program. We also were approved to do alternate designs. This one is at the Northeast Academy for Aerospace and Advanced Technologies in Elizabeth City. So that's out east. And their particular building is unique. They had taken over an old mall. And so a pole mounted array in the parking lot did not seem feasible. Roof mounted also would not work because it would not be visible. So this is our first awning installation. We also have started doing rooftop installations. So again, originally we did the pole mounts for visibility. These are intended to be community installations for people to see and engage conversations around solar and STEM education. So this is another example of something that worked out pretty well. And as Matthew mentioned earlier, our state is divided into tier counties based on the economic distress level of those counties. And our focus has really been on tier 1 and tier 2, although we do accept applications and have awarded across the state fairly evenly, in fact, and the same with the different school levels, high school, middle school, elementary. We've also had a few that are K through 12. So we don't have a specific focus on any grade level. And again, it's been kind of evenly split across those 3. So far, we've awarded 56 schools in 38 counties. They've produced about 500,000 kilowatt hours. And so you can see that that would be savings back to the school as credit on their bill. And we've been able to reach almost 43,000 students with our STEM education initiatives. So if you can see here on the map, there's a lot of counties we have not covered yet. And so if you or someone you know currently residing in those counties, and you know of someone at a school in those areas, please encourage them to apply. It is our goal to reach all 100 counties. I'm not sure if that's feasible because I know there are some areas of our state that are not served by North Carolina utilities, but we do hope to reach that goal, and especially trying to reach those schools who otherwise would not have received solar education or these STEM initiatives that we're working on. And I wanted to point out that though the schools do have to raise a small amount of money, all of our schools since the beginning of the program in 2015 have been successful. 2020, we had 10 schools. Prior to that, it was always 5 during the pilot years. Last year, 2021, we had 15 schools who were awarded. And again, they also exceeded their fundraising goals. This year, we plan to accept up to 20 schools. And so we definitely need those applications to come in so that we're able to award as many schools as possible. It's open again through the end of February. Just a small reminder. And if you have any questions or if you think of anything that I needed to elaborate on, please don't hesitate to reach out. I really appreciate the opportunity and hope that this has provided you with some new information.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Katie. Let's see, Paul, did you need to take a minute to get the videos and or mic set up in a certain way, or shall I get started?
Yeah, I'm inviting them to share the screen, so.
Great.
That's everybody.
All right, wonderful. So I thought I would just start out with asking a general question for anybody who wants to chime in, and then we can go to maybe some of the audience questions and see how it flows from there. But my first question for all of you is that given that some funding opportunities from NC Green Power and the State Energy Office aren't completely finalized yet, what's your recommendation for local governments and schools to get ready for when this funding is available?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what they can do to get ready for this funding is be proactive and think about projects based on what we provided. Think about projects that would fit those criteria, and that way, when we put out whether DOE puts out an RFP or we do, you'll have some things in shovel-ready ideas that we could go ahead and pursue, because DOE really would prioritize projects that you can actually do and implement quickly. So, but yeah, I would just be proactive and go ahead and start putting the pen to the paper and getting some ideas. And feel free to reach out to us. I mean, we're happy to help develop some ideas and go through things. But like we said earlier, is our priorities in the energy office is first to target these marginalized and disadvantaged communities in North Carolina. So if you're one of those areas, then definitely reach out to us. We're happy to help. So, and with that.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for being a resource to our state. Wendy or Katie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I guess I would just say in general, not necessarily about any specific grants or programs that would be coming available, is to go ahead and get started. And so, what I really find when I'm working with cities, governments, whoever it is, it takes a little bit of time, right? And so I think going ahead and figuring out what you're maybe interested in. If you're looking at installing solar on site, what kind of ground space do you have? What kind of roof space? I think having those kind of internal stakeholder decisions early as possible. I think then when things come through, that way you're already ready, or especially if it's something that's on a limited capacity, that way you're already ahead of the game. Because I do find that it typically takes at least a couple of months. Like for my business customers, it's usually about 6 months before I find that they're ready to transact on something. So get your ducks in a row. And then when you have kind of, something that comes through that may be kind of tipping it to whether or not you can do something, you can go ahead and move right away.
And I would echo that. We've run into some hiccups in our program where as the installer is getting ready to, drill a hole in the ground and went to get permits, that city or town did not allow solar. And so we got a really quick civics lesson in, how we're able to put that through and get an exception so that the educational system could be set up. Because that particular area was against solar farms, which is, not anything close to what we're doing with the 5 kW. And so I think for us, we've seen some issues with buy-in, both from internal management, superintendent level, and also the upper level with facilities or maybe even the insurance folks, really being hesitant about installing solar, especially on rooftops, which, as you all know, is the most affordable way and easiest way to get solar installed. With our pole mounted, of course, again, we did that for the visibility of it, but it is very expensive and it takes a lot longer to do. And so whenever we can find that alternate way, that just means NC Green Power has more funding to do additional schools. So I would recommend definitely conversations with everybody up front, whether you're looking at the NC Green Power grant or any of these other programs. We've seen even when something doesn't cost anything, it's still been quite a challenge and quite a struggle. So just the education that you can provide, reach out to those partners that you're hoping to get funding from, have those conversations early on so that you don't get down the road where you've been awarded something and later find out that there's an issue.
Wonderful. And then it looks like there's a couple of questions for some of our panelists in the chat. A question for Wendy. Do you know what the future is of the Duke NC Solar rebate? I think that's a question on a lot of people's minds. And if you could speak to that or any other renewable energy programs coming down the pike.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of speak to that. So I would say at this time, I don't know. So when you kind of think through the timing, I feel likely based on how much, especially the nonprofit capacity we have available ending this year, that there is going to be kind of a final round in 2023. And so I do think we need to kind of get there and kind of see what happens. I don't have any indication. There hasn't been, folks are asking, there's not been legislation for specifically a new rebate program. So I would say stay tuned. Specifically, I think I referenced earlier this piece of legislation, HB 951, that specifically has language in there to allow for more customer programs. So, I think as that comes along, if I was to give, this is Wendy, kind of not Duke Energy, but from a timing perspective, coming into the summer, the fall, I'll have a better sense of what those new programs are going to look like, whether it's a rebate program or other ways to help customers get to their goals.
That's really exciting. And then a sort of a follow-up question. I've always been interested in the community solar model, and I'm curious if any of you have had any experience with seeing a successful project. And I know that Duke has the shared solar initiative. So I'd love to hear from all of you, since we all sit in different seats, on your perspective on community solar and the opportunities there. Because I see it as a way to increase equitable access to solar for renters, for people who have shady roofs like myself. I wish I could go solar here, but I live in a forest. So
yeah, I can go first, just then pass it on since I'd finished that one. So in North Carolina, we do have a shared solar program, though the framework of how that program was kind of rolled down or came out to us has been challenging. And the reason why, it's the sizing of the programs that were allowable for the program, and they have to come in at a certain cost to be able to execute them to customers. So we have not had any projects that would come in at that kind of avoided cost threshold. So while we do have it there, we've not been able to actually, there's no solar facilities to be able to subscribe to. So, it's definitely something, we do have it in some of our other states, kind of different flavors. And so, we are continuing to explore what that could look like, to your point, of ways to have as many customers as possible access. But that's kind of where I stand today. It's just not, we have the program, but not something that customers can participate in currently under the approved framework from the commission.
I'll dive in. So under the last funding opportunity we had in last federal fiscal year under the CARES Act, our office funded 94 subscriptions for community solar. We worked with the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center at NC State University, and they partnered with the Fayetteville Municipal Electric, the Piedmont EMC, the Brunswick EMC in Roanoke. And it was a great success story. We invested over $200,000 into it and got 94 subscriptions, and it was a fantastic program. And we're hoping to expand that this year under ARPA as well. So.
And we haven't yet been able to add that to our portfolio. We've been in lots of conversations with developers, working on those opportunities, potentially even a community solar project that might involve a school system. We just haven't gotten there quite yet. It has been challenging, and we do hope to be able to launch that in the future, because we've heard a lot from our donors that they really would appreciate that opportunity to be able to support something larger than what they have now.
Awesome, thank you. Looks like there's one more quick question for Wendy, and then I wanted to take one more audience question before we wrap things up. So Terry has a question to Wendy. Can you describe the role of Duke Energy Business Energy Advisors in navigating energy efficiency rebates for customers?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things at Duke Energy. So depending your account and kind of, there's a couple flavors, but you have either a business energy advisor. We also have large account managers. It really just depends on what type of a customer you are. But everybody typically has somebody assigned, or if not, we have resources for you. So I did include, somebody had sent it to me in the QA, but I'll put it in the chat. So one of the main programs we have in North Carolina that is kind of around energy efficiency upgrades is called Smart Path. So that's a great resource, as well as if you're not sure who is assigned to your account, and if you're looking for somebody to kind of walk through kind of your specific scenarios outside of what's on the website, feel free to reach out to me kind of after this meeting. I'd be happy to connect you to the right person.
Wonderful. And then last question is, are 2021 Recovery and Infrastructure Grant programs available for local cost-saving investments?
I'm assuming that's for EE. I would assume, but yeah, if it's for EE, absolutely, that would fall under that bucket that we described earlier. But it would be, the money will funnel through in two different ways. It'll either be through one through our office for the funding, the non-competitive funding that will potentially go towards that, but also in that national allocation I showed, we could definitely partner up and pursue funding that we could work together to bring it down to local governments. So yeah, it's there for EE.
Wonderful. And then let's see, did Bill Eager have a question, Paul, or should we close it up?
I was waiting to hear from Bill. I can allow him to talk if he may have hit the hand raise on accident, but
Oh no, he's unmuted, and let's see.
Hey, Paul. No, I did not have a question. Just want to say great job to everyone. Learned a lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill, for that great way to end this webinar. Ricky asked, will you be, I'll be sending out an email with presentations and links and resources that you all can use, because I realize this came at you fast, over 2.5 hours. And we're wrapping up things 2.5 hours in. I just want to say thanks to all the presenters, all the participants. Thank you so much for your time and your work sharing these resources. To all the attendees, I really hope that this, the time you spent here was valuable. Please reach out to me after receiving more follow-up emails with more questions. I'm glad to help make connections to help bring these energy efficiency and renewable energy projects to life. And of course, thanks to everyone in the Clean Air Campaign for everyone's work on this webinar. Really, really happy with how things went. I appreciate everyone's time. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Thursday. And yeah, has a great 2022. All the best.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.